Should we maybe all three watch Hell on Wheels and then just become a only Hell on Wheels podcast?
Golly, I'd love that. Trio on wheels, maybe?
We can talk about Common.
Common is in that, yeah. Common.
Oh, the Common Cast.
We could also just become the official podcast of Common.
Yeah, he doesn't have a podcast guy yet, right?
He does now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are the Arnies, and we have nothing better to do than be here with you. I'm Austin Terry, and I'm joined, as always, by my best friends and my co-hosts, Matt Johnson and Keith Baker. Matt, how you doing?
Pretty good. Really excited to talk about Suicide Squad today.
Oh, well, that's not today's episode.
Oh,
Keith,
man.
Keith, what about you? How you doing?
Doing good. Just got out of a CVS. I was there for 2 hours just to get one prescription.
Nice.
So it's good being back here talking to you guys.
I had to go to the dentist this morning to get a mouth guard because I guess I'm grinding my teeth now. And it took me 15 minutes.
Man, people really, they're going to come for the topics, but they're going to stay for the dental talk.
I know. We'll do a whole other episode on that. We'll combine that and Aquaman.
Save it for the dental podcast.
All right. Yeah, we're getting to that. Big announcement coming soon.
Well, just like the rest of the world, here on the Arnies, we are all in lockdown due to COVID-19. So today we're going to do a little bit more of a laid-back episode. We're just going to hang out. We're going to talk some video games, talk about some shows we caught up on and some movies we saw to stay entertained during lockdown. Matt, it kind of feels like show and tell today, don't you think?
A little bit. I think this was kind of the original idea for this show as well. Kind of just talking about the stuff that we had either done or watched or played during the week, just to, because I know we kind of started this on the basis of just having, you know, the casual chill conversations that we have like day to day, just doing it on a podcast. Except now, instead of week to week, it's kind of cool that we're just doing an entire coronavirus one. Like, what have we been doing in lockdown? What have we been watching? How do we entertain ourselves? So turns out it was a pretty long list.
Like you guys said, we did get to start catching up on some video games. So what's I guess the main game that we've been playing? I guess at first it was PUBG, right?
How long have we been playing that? I mean, we started playing that when it first.
Was it been 2.5 years?
It's been 2 years probably, but
yeah,
it was a little bit more sporadic. And then when lockdown happened, it was like every night.
Yeah, now it's like more like how it was when we were in high school. Like in high school, basically, we would go home from school after we all had like different extracurricular activities. We would go home from that, like do homework and whatever. And then pretty much like after dinner, if I remember right, you know, we would just play Xbox for a couple hours maybe. And that was like every day for the most part. And yeah, like as we got older, like into college, and then now that we're all graduated, you know, maybe like honestly, conservatively, probably once every 2 weeks. Maybe it was like once on like the weekend maybe, but yeah, now it's like maybe every other night. It's like, it does feel very high school in a way, but you know, it's kind of always been our way to stay in touch. We're not big, like, you know, video, like FaceTime. We don't really do that. We don't call each other that much on the phone. We do text, but I mean, Xbox was always the way, you know, we usually would stay in touch and talk like about how you've been doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about video games is it does make an easy way to hang out and you don't have to be in the same place.
Yeah, that's always been the great part about it.
It's also been perfect for the current situation because you don't have to leave at home.
That's what I was thinking. But yeah, to your guys' point, PUBG was that was what we were playing like before quarantine. Like that's kind of what we would be doing whenever we would hop on because it was just a fun game that we could all play together.
We were never like really good at PUBG, but then like right at the start of lockdown when we were playing more, I thought, man, we're getting really good. And then I found out they added bots because nobody's playing that game anymore.
Oh man. I literally remember one night, it must have been in quarantine at some point, but we were playing it. And I guess for people that don't know, PUBG is it's like, it was the Fortnite before Fortnite. I know nobody cares about PUBG anymore, which is fine. But yeah, it's just like one of those like Hunger Games type games where you're all 100 people, like players from all over the world in a plane, they drop on an island and you just want to be the last person standing. There's guns, weapons, and there's just like a circle constantly coming in. It's getting smaller and smaller, and you just want to be the last person standing, or the last team standing in our case. But yeah, to the point about bots, I remember one night so vividly because I was just like, man, I got 11 kills, and there's only 100 people max in a game session. So I was like, I killed over 1/10 of these players. I'm incredible. And it was the next day that Austin texted our group message saying that PUBG is all bots now. I was like,
which makes sense. All those guys are just standing still. You're like, oh wow, these guys aren't even moving or anything like that.
The moment I was just like, I'm just moving so quick. They don't even seem like they're moving in my
Yeah,
head.
me too. I was like, man, I've just gotten so good. Like it was the first online game I actually felt good at.
Yeah. Well, it ended up working out though, because while PUBG, I guess we still enjoy it to an extent. We still have played it like recently in quarantine, but as our, I guess, interest has started to dwindle a little bit from how it was in the beginning, Call of Duty Modern Warfare dropped, Warzone, which is their battle royale. So we just have kind of recently been getting into that, which I think I can speak for all of us that we seem to, well, we definitely rage a bit more in it than we do in stuff like PUBG. I do think we've been having a really good time playing it.
I've never not raged in any COD game. I've
I don't
always
know what it is. Is it just
cursing the entire time I'm playing a COD game.
I don't know. Maybe that's also one of those high school things. It just like forces that younger self out, where just little shit like that, just dying in a video game was the worst thing that could happen to you.
It's even worse in Call of Duty because the camera stays on your dead body, and you see it's probably a 5-year-old on the other end just teabagging your dead corpse.
It really is like that. It happens. It just, the camera is just your corpse, and it kind of zooms out a little bit, and you just see like somebody kind of walk out of nowhere and start circling your body to pick up all your stuff, and you're just like, oh god damn it! And we all do it. It's so fun.
I've really been enjoying Warzone. For anybody that hasn't played it, it has a really cool feature where they drop a loadout, which is kind of like the care package in PUBG. But it drops a loadout, and if you can get to it, you can get all of your own like customized weapons and stuff. And so that forces you to play the other multiplayer modes to level up your guns. So it's a smart feature that they did just for the game itself. But then when you can actually get to that in the actual Warzone, it feels so important.
Oh, also, yeah, definitely. It does feel, at least for me, a little bit more strategic than some of the other battle royales I've played. But also, we got to mention, Austin, I don't know how long the game has been out. I guess it must have come out the end of last year. But it's Austin like and I, so we got the game originally because we wanted to play the story, because we were playing, Modern Warfare along with Keith back in high school. So this was kind of a reboot of that story with some of the same characters. So we got it originally to play the story, a little bit of the multiplayer, and the Spec Ops mode, which we were really excited about, that ended up not really being that fun for us, at least.
Anybody who is a fan of Modern Warfare 2 knows how great Spec Ops was.
Yeah, man, we had a blast with those. But the cool thing about what they did here is that Warzone came out, and then I found out it didn't really apply to me because I had the game already. But Austin and I were pretty excited about it. But this Warzone, this entire new mode, like it feels like almost like a full game in a sense, this Battle Royale mode, is completely free. And it's a standalone product, basically. So you can just get it if you have the game already. But then Keith, who didn't have the game, was able to, play with us at no cost to him, which was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, our boy Keith, he loves his free stuff.
Hell yeah.
Does? Yeah. I'm cheap when it comes to video games, especially the COD games. I know I suck at them. And for reasons mentioned earlier, I just get too mad in those games. So, but I do like the Battle Royale version of it, though. I'll have to admit that. I think I just like that overall concept of the game in general, which is why I really fell in love with PUBG. I mean, we played the shit out of that game.
Yeah.
And I'm still playing that game. And even if you guys aren't there, I'm still playing like solo and all that. I still love that game. But no, it's been good to get into Warzone and challenge myself video game wise. I've always kind of sucked ass at video games. So it's been good to get out of my comfort zone and play that, especially a first person game, because I've never really been into first person games too much.
As soon as I kind of saw where lockdown was headed, I finally went ahead and bought a PS4 because there were a ton of games I've been waiting to play. And I just had always owned an Xbox. And so, PS4 has always had the better exclusive games. So I finally got one of those. And the first thing I played was God of War. And man, I don't think a game has sucked me in like that in a long time.
No, God of War's cool. It's basically a reboot of a really, popular PS2 era, I guess PS3 as well, franchise, just the God of War Kratos. It's basically just his revenge mission. He hates the gods, so you're just trying to kill, you know, Ares, Zeus, Poseidon, all the gods or whatever for wronging you. And this was a reboot. It's basically God of War 4, but it's much more of like a serious kind of more mature story and almost like less of a focus on combat and more on story. But it's pretty cool. It's really great. The characters and the relationships between them was always so interesting.
You are escorting his son, and his son's actually really well acted by the voice actor, and he can like shoot bow and arrows while you're in combat. So he's like actually super useful too. Like you'd kind of think it's annoying if you found out in the video game you're just like escorting this 8-year-old kid with you the whole time, but he's actually a really interesting character.
I would somehow fuck it up and like kick the kid off a cliff or something.
Yeah, you'd find a way. You'd find a way. This coming from the guy that whenever we lent him Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, he got to like the Brotherhood part of the game where it's like, okay, go recruit an assassin, and he had to quit because he just couldn't do it. He kept accidentally knocking them off like cliffs, like they would die before they got there. He's like, I can't do it, guys. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, God of War I played when that one came out, and that was definitely a highlight for sure.
It's the only open world game I've played where I felt the need to do like everything. Like I've never felt the need to do like collectibles and stuff, but in this game, I don't know what it was, but it made me want to do like I basically play every part of this game that I could.
Yeah, just all the collectibles added to the world instead of just being like random things that the developers put in there just so you can feel the need to collect something. Like these were like destroying Odin's ravens who are kind of watching the world like from above. And you know what that means is the importance of gods and how they operate in this world. So destroying those, finding these like tapestries that show both the future and past that could happen in this world. And yeah, I mean, they just really found a way to make everything really compelling. And this coming from someone that played God of War 3, and that was it. So it's like I didn't even have the full knowledge of the series, but they did such a good job of setting it up anyway with this reboot that it was just a blast.
So the other game I also got caught up on was The Last of Us, and that I know you also played this during the pandemic too.
Yeah, I had it for so long. I had it ever since I got the PS4 originally. I bought it like that same day. And yeah, so for whatever reason, I guess it must have been like whenever some of the main trailers for Last of Us 2 were coming out. I was like, okay, I've had the game, so I know Last of Us 2 is coming soon. This is before I got delayed. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to play it. And it took the pandemic to do it. Like it was right at the beginning of quarantine, which was kind of I'm sure you agree, it was kind of an interesting way to play that game, which is such a focus on. I mean, that game is really about a post-apocalyptic almost world, and a world that kind of ended and so many people died because of a pandemic that wasn't fixed essentially.
Yeah. I have a really kind of weird relationship with this game because I found out it was coming out in 2013 and I was super excited for it, and then I found out it was going to be a PS3 exclusive at the time, and I couldn't justify buying a second console for one game, so I have basically waited 7 years and avoided every single spoiler that could potentially come out for this game. Like for the past 7 years, anything that had The Last of Us in the title, I think on social media, I just wouldn't even look at. Like I did everything I could to avoid spoilers. Now I finally got to play it, and it was worth the wait.
Yeah, did it live up to the hype for you?
It took me a second to get into it, which I was kind of surprised by. But I think once I got through like the first like 30 minutes, I was super into the game. Like as soon as you actually get into the combat, it hooks, it sucks you in, and you just kind of can't stop playing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It took me a little bit to get into it, but yeah, I mean, it's actually it has similarities with God of War. I mean, it's just about this guy living in like 20 years into the end of the world in a way after this pandemic wiped out most of the, planet's population or whatever, living in a quarantine zone in the US. And then they end up finding out that this young girl, she's been bitten, but she isn't turning into the infected. So she might be a cure. So it's basically like a cross country road trip to get her to these people that might be able to manufacture a cure, kind of about, the relationship these two bond along the way, and kind of some of the good people and the bad people they meet along the way, and kind of like Uncharted. I mean, the gameplay is good. It's not great, but I mean, really, you're here for the story. And for me, it was simple and it was, not a lot to the story, but so well handled and ambitious in its own way and just really enjoyable. It's kind of weird for us to talk about it because it's not like we really need to recommend it. I'm sure most people have played it. So we kind of just played it now to get ready for Last of Us 2, which when we're recording this show, I guess will be playable tomorrow night. So kind of good timing on that point. So I'm definitely excited now that I'm a fan of the original after all this time.
Yeah, I know you said the combat wasn't anything special, and I kind of agree. It's just your typical third-person combat. But I will say this is one of the few games I played where you never ever feel comfortable. Like you always have you don't have enough ammo for any fight you get into. Any of your melee weapons can break at any time. So you're kind of always on your toes, and you really have to stay stealthy. You can't really get into a full-on shootout in this game.
Yeah, that's definitely the best part of the gameplay. It's just this you're always checking your ammo, and it's you have a pistol that you've used all your arrows or something, maybe all your sniper ammo, and now all you have is 3 bullets and a pistol, and there's nothing you can do about it. So your only option is to just really stay stealthy. Hopefully you can pick off a few guys from behind with a knife or something. But yeah, no, it's really cool the way they handle those more open areas where you have to take out all these guys, and you can always be stealthy, or you can always be all out if you want to waste your ammo, but it may hurt you later. So that was always really well handled. I always appreciated that.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool. All right, well, let's turn away from video games now and jump into some shows that we've been catching up on. Keith, I know you and I binged Ozark Season 3 when that came out.
What a show, I have to say. I mean, it's kind of like bringing back the feelings I had when I was watching Breaking Bad in a way. That show, it gets, except it's much darker than Breaking Bad. And Breaking Bad was dark, but this one, Ozark brings it to a different level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to get compared to Breaking Bad, but I think this season especially was its strongest one yet, and definitely puts it on par with Breaking Bad. I think as a TV show, this season's awesome.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Jason Bateman, he's incredible, and I haven't really seen him all too much. I've actually only seen him in comedic roles, really, but I think he really plays Marty Bird well, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just like Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad, I couldn't imagine another lead in this show. Jason Bateman was a perfect casting, but yeah, for this season specifically, I really like the Casey mob, the Snells family, and the Navarro cartel. I like that they all have each major roles in this season, and I really like how they're kind of picking sides now. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and there was definitely some of the side characters are really good. Like her, I wish I could remember the actor's name, the guy who plays Wendy Bird's brother.
Yeah, I wrote his name down because I didn't want to not mention him, but Tom Pelphrey, he gives an incredible performance as Ben Davis. He definitely deserves an Emmy for this season. I found his character so believable and just really emotional too. I felt so bad for him in this season.
Yeah, he was just going there to get help, and we won't give anything away. But and also the lawyer, I wish I could remember her name too. I'm feeling bad I didn't look at these names before. But
Helen Pierce.
Yeah, Helen Pierce. That's the character's name. Yeah, she's creepy.
she's awesome though. I really like her character.
Yeah, but no, they're all creepy in a weird way, and how those characters progress from the beginning of the show being this innocent family, now they're drug dealers and all that. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'll say before we move on is the whole Marty Bird and Wendy Bird conflict stuff has been interesting, but I hope that they kind of get away from that in the next couple seasons. I'm kind of ready for them to start working together as a team, because things always work out better for them when they kind of work together, which I guess is the point of the show, but I'm kind of over their conflict now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I hope they come together, and I think I don't want to give anything away, but I think, by season 4, you'll see them come together.
Yeah. And I kind of like that they wrote this season with the intention of there being a season 4. So we'll see if Netflix removes it, but I feel like they're going to have to, because that season was so good.
Matthew, recommend it to you.
Yeah, Matt, you got to watch it.
Yeah, I'll get back into it. I've been meaning to, for sure.
Well, Matthew, what did you bring to show us today?
I think the main one. I mean, I've been watching a bunch of stuff, but the only like show that I guess I've binge watched, like start to finish, and that all took place during quarantine was like for maybe B. I just said that I added an extra B onto the end of maybe. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I hope I didn't offend you. No. Yeah, I think like for the span of maybe 3 weeks, like every day after work when I was done with what I was doing, I would just watch Community on Netflix. And I had never seen it before. Maybe like when it was first on, maybe I caught a couple episodes in passing, but never the full thing. Obviously, it's developed like an insane cult following since then. So I finally was like, you know what? I think it had just come to Netflix or been recently added whenever I watched it. So I finally sat down, watched all six seasons. And wow, it's just so good. It's so good. It's so funny. It's so heartfelt. I mean, I think all the reasons people like The Office and Parks and Rec. I mean, I think it has all those things. It has just really fun characters that might not always be the best of people, but by the end of that 20-minute episode, you'll at the very least understand where they're coming from or their side of something. The characters in this much like sometimes, especially Joel McHale's character, kind of feels like he's ripped out of like Always Sunny at times, but he's so good, and the whole cast is great.
Do you think it's on the same level as The Office and Parks and Rec?
I think it's definitely on the same level. Is it better? I don't know, because I've just watched the whole thing. I'd need to sit on it a bit longer, I think. But I think it's easily on the same level. I think the writing's better. I think Dan Harmon as a writer and whatever, I don't know if he wrote everything by himself or if he had other people helping. I'm not sure. I'm sure he did. But he just did a great job. It just feels like smarter. It feels like if you like references, like pop culture references, and it just feels like they took bigger swings than The Office and Parks and Rec did. Like it felt like they could do crazier stuff, and like with like the premises and the characters and the way the show works in that world. Like they could kind of mess around with it. Like I won't give anything away because again, I bet people are just watching it for the first time like I did because it just came to Netflix. But they turn like at the beginning, like the cold open of an episode. It's like, all right, guys, this is the only one I'll give away. There's like a cold open of one episode, I think, in the first season where they're like, all right, guys, we're going to have some fun. They're bringing paintball to the campus. So, if you win, then, you get like $100. So enjoy. And then like the intro plays. And after the intro's done, Joel McHale wakes up in his car and they just like the entire show changed from the way they normally shoot it to it looks like a post-apocalypse. It's just like there's paint everywhere. Everything's torn apart. And he's like, what happened? I just slept for like an hour in between classes. And then it becomes like a post-apocalyptic, like they're trying to meet back up with each other, and like it becomes like a war movie. It's so funny. Like they do that a lot with this show. It's like they'll take things that seem like it's going to be a normal sitcom type thing, but then it just becomes something completely different. Lots of great actors: Alison Brie, Chevy Chase, Donald Glover before he became Childish Gambino, Danny Pudi. Who else is in this? Yvette Nicole Brown, aka Helen from Drake and Josh. Come on,
Helen.
Give it up to her.
Hey, it's not my job.
And then, of course, Joel McHale and Gillian Jacobs. Everyone's so good.
Tim Jong's in it too, right?
And Jong is in it. He plays Senor Chang. He's the Spanish teacher. He's so funny. I mean, the cast is incredible, just like, other NBC sitcoms like The Office and Parks and Rec. But I feel like I just responded. Maybe I didn't like all the characters as much as those shows, but I just responded more to the writing of this show. Like it has all the same stuff. It has love stories, character interplay, but for me, it just always felt like something, not going to say better, but just something more interesting was going on with how they wrote the show. The first 3 seasons I would recommend to everybody. Season 4, they kind of changed up leadership a bit, so it's still good. It's just it becomes more of like a broad comedy. And then 5 and 6, they brought Dan Harmon back, and to me, I think there's some controversy. Like people don't like those seasons as much, but I still loved it. I think if you're looking for a show that like never has a dip, maybe a little bit in the 4th season, but to me, it just felt like such a consistent ride for the most part. I loved it. I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same position that you were in before you watched it, because my wife actually just finished binging it. And I've only seen it in passing, and what I saw made me laugh, so I just need to sit down and watch it.
What style of show is it? Is it like Parks and Rec and Office where it's like documentary style, or is it
No.
sitcom-y?
Yeah, it's definitely more sitcom. There's no talking heads. It's not the mockumentary thing. It's just, like the world they're in is real. There's no like fourth wall breaking. Like it's just everything we see is happening. And again, for people that don't know, the premise is basically just these people are all attending community college and they're, just trying to pass basically. So they form a study group and all the actors I mentioned are part of the study group and just kind of the wild stuff that they go on, which again is cool to me because that premise doesn't like, how's the show going to be like interesting or wild or how can it be that fun? And they just found really cool ways to make it just such an engaging show. And one that like literally when the next episode when one would end, I didn't know what the next episode was going to be. I knew I was excited because I love the characters, but they could go on any kind of weird, crazy adventure. And it's really cool. I'd recommend it for sure.
Well, Keith, speaking of The Office, I know you just recently finished binging that.
Well, I have been binging it, but I'm only in the first season still. So
Austin just rolled his eyes all the way back. This isn't a video, but so I have to describe to the audience some of these reactions. I didn't know there was controversy. I didn't know that Keith allegedly finished The Office.
No, I never finished The Office.
I just like no, I am binging it. I am in the first season.
The first season.
I said, guys, come to me with shows you binged during quarantine that you want to watch. And Keith said, I got to talk about The Office.
He binged 5 episodes.
I didn't say I finished it.
The first season, 6 episodes, and they're 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're right.
I binged it though. I watched like 5 episodes in a row. It's binging.
That's a binge. Okay, we'll count that. So Keith, you have 150 episodes left. Who do you like so far?
Have you seen it before, or is this your first time?
Well, I had seen random episodes, like going over people's houses and hanging out. I've seen random episodes, but I've never actually started it from the beginning and gone all the way through like I did Parks and Rec, where that's kind of what got me into The Office because it's the same, similar style show and all that. But no, I like I think Steve Carell is hilarious and it's funny because I started binging it from the first season. He's like fat, and then you right when you go into the second season, you can tell he like lost all this weight, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I looked, like, oh yes, season 2, episode 1. Makes sense. He lost a bunch of weight. I was like, why does he look so different? And then
he also got hair plugs, if I remember right.
Yeah, I noticed he's kind of
he looks awful in the first season.
Yeah, I think
that really does. That's why
he always looks like he's sweating like profusely on his head. Only on his head though, not the rest of his body.
That's why I was taking it back in the first episode of season 2. I was like, what is so different about him? And I noticed like, oh, he lost a bunch of weight and he has hair now. But he's hilarious. Sorry.
Season 1 is definitely the hardest season to get through. So if you made it through that, you're in for a great ride, Keith.
I love season 1.
All right. Well, every week on this show, we're going to have a new segment on this podcast called Keith's Office Binge Check-In.
All right. Well, the show that I got into, it's a detective show on Amazon Prime called Bosch. And I have to give credit to Eliza Schlesinger, the comedian, because she was tweeting about it like crazy. And I thought, hey, I'll go check that out. But man, I love this show. It's kind of your typical detective show. Titus Welliver plays a detective named Harry Bosch. And each season is a different case. He's a cop in Los Angeles. He has kind of some past trauma in his life that led him to become a detective. And I just find every single case so interesting. It's a show that I feel like I can't check my phone during, which I appreciate because it kind of just lets me check out from my everyday life. And every small detail in a case pays off. And I find the whole show so interesting and exciting.
Well, you know what his past trauma was, right?
What was that?
Well, in the world of Bosch, I heard that The Office was canceled after season 1. So he only got to binge the first 6 episodes, and then he found out there was no more.
Well, so if I said, hey, Harry Bosch, please come to me with a show that you binged during quarantine. And then he said, well, I only saw the first season, but it got canceled. I would say that counts because you finished it.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. You're coming around.
I'm going to surprise you, Austin, but I actually read a Harry Bosch book by Michael Connelly.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's based on a book. I haven't read
Did
the
you
book
binge
though.
it?
I definitely binged that book.
Nice.
You know, the Harry Bosch series.
What was the case in the book?
I don't remember. I read it like right when it first came out, like 10 years ago. I can't remember that book.
Austin just rolled his eyes again.
But you know, Harry Bosch is the same author from Lincoln.
Is it Bosch or Bosch?
I
I hate that you guys are saying it differently.
It's Bosch.
It's Bochi.
All right. What show are we talking about next?
Well, Keith, I'm kind of scared to go back to you because I don't know if you've actually seen the show, but I know you wanted to talk about Hell on Wheels.
Oh, I just wanted to give a brief intro to it and recommend it to you guys. I think you all would like it. And yes, I have finished this show. It's completed.
All right.
I have finished it. I believe you all would like it. It takes place in the late 1870s. They're building the Transcontinental Railroad. So it's like a western.
Yeah, I've seen the first 3 seasons of that. I watched it when it was like
Oh, you
live
did?
on AMC. Yeah, I kind of fell off it though.
I actually watched the first 3 seasons too, and then I fell off, and then I rewatched it and I binged it all the way through.
Nice.
And I recommend going back and just starting over, rewatch it. I think it's a really good show. So highly recommend it. That's all I have to say about that one. I just want to quickly recommend it.
Okay, so Matt, I think the last thing we have to talk about before we get into movies is I know you recently went and watched The Witcher.
I did watch The Witcher. Austin wouldn't shut up about it. So I said, I'm going to be a good friend. And my birthday gift to him is I'm going to watch The Witcher. It was 8 episodes. They're all over an hour long.
It's got our boy Henry Cavill.
It does have Henry Cavill in it. I love Henry Cavill. It was good.
It was good? That's all you thought? Just good? That show's fantastic.
Yeah, I thought the show was good. I enjoyed it. I found it very confusing. Like, it felt
Well, they
like
do the multiple timelines thing.
which I didn't realize, which I guess you're not supposed to at first. But like, yeah, I guess I won't spoil it if anybody wants to watch it. But there's some interesting timeline stuff going on. Which I'll just say there was maybe like halfway through the show there was an episode where a character that was dead, I thought, is just in it again, and I was like, what? What's happening? And then I realized that the show has multiple timelines. It was very confusing. I found the world like it kind of felt like Netflix was just trying to make their Game of Thrones. So they were like, just push it all in there. Like, we need this world to be established. And I kind of felt overwhelmed. Like, it seems like they're trying to make me, like, it feels like I already need to know everything, but I don't know anything about this place. But Henry Cavill's great. He's awesome in this role. The combat is really exciting and fun to watch. And then once I got into the second half, like after I understood the timeline stuff, then I found it a lot more compelling. And I am excited to see more of it. It is like just a brutal show with really cool storylines, like, and just fun characters. Like, you know, he's so serious all the time, but they surround him with a really good cast of characters and great actors. But the second half is definitely more interesting for me. And I found the cliffhanger at the end of season 1 just very bizarre. So I am excited for season 2 though. But I guess it's going to be one of those things, like once season 2 starts, I feel like it took them like 8 hours plus of a season 1 to get to what I want to see. So I feel like once season 2 starts, that's when I'm going to be actually interested in what's going on. Whereas this kind of just feels like a prologue instead of like the start of a story. But we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind once it comes out. But yeah, the cliffhanger I thought was bizarre.
I agree that they throw a lot at you at the beginning. I do agree with you. I think the second half is stronger than the first half. But I thought the first half still, like, even though they're throwing a lot at you, I still like found it really interesting and just only wanted to keep learning more about this world. Maybe that's because I came into it not knowing like anything. After playing the game, I can see why a lot of fans of the game just thought the show was okay. But I think if you're just
based on the games, right? It's based on the books. So if there's people that have only played The Witcher 3, then they're probably going to be disappointed that stuff is different or not focused on.
Yeah, it is based on the books, and the show takes place before the game even takes place.
Right. Yeah.
But I can, after having gone back and then played the game, I definitely can see why a lot of fans thought it was just okay. It is very different from the games. But I think for a lot of people who knew nothing about this world like I did, I think the consensus there is that it's a really good show.
So Keith, I heard you mention in there that you watched half of the first episode. Only difference is I went back and finished it. What did you think of that first half? Give us your review of the first half of season 1 of The Witcher.
I don't know why I didn't finish it. I mean, all I remember from it was he was running through the woods. He fell into a creek, and some monster was going after him. That's all I remember.
That's the intro to the first episode.
Talking
about the spider?
Yeah, the big spider thing. Yeah.
That's the first 2 minutes of the show.
That's all I remember.
Keith binged the hell out of that first half.
I binged that first 2 minutes, man.
It was great.
Well, Keith, if you can get through the first episode, the first episode does end with one of the coolest fight scenes of the show.
That's true.
Cool. I'll have to go back and watch it when I'm done binging The Office.
Yeah, you got to finish the entire Office first.
All right, so in 7 years, Keith will start The Witcher.
All right, guys. I will see you then.
Alrighty, well, let's get into some movies that we got a chance to catch up on during lockdown. I think the first thing that we kind of all got into, and I know Matt was really championing this movie, but it's Uncut Gems.
I guess I did. I definitely recommended it. But I also I just watched it for the first time in quarantine. I guess this one came out like December of last year, so it's still pretty recent. But I was happy to see it pop up on Netflix because I missed it. I just never got around to seeing it, but. Such a good movie. I always loved seeing Adam Sandler. I always love seeing like comedic actors in dramatic roles. So it's cool to see Adam Sandler doing something completely different with like just such a. I mean, the story's pretty simple. He just plays like a serial gambler, and like the real life, Kevin Garnett playing Kevin Garnett basically comes in, and like Adam Sandler, his character is such a big fan, and he ends up showing him off like this really cool piece. And Kevin Garnett's like, I need it as a good luck charm. And so he's like, he leaves his ring as collateral. And then you start to see like Adam Sandler's character goes and like pawns off that ring to get some money so that he can bet on the game. And so everything starts to go wrong from there. Like kind of like all these like threads and all these bets he's making all start to pile up. And he has people after him, and maybe his family's in danger. Maybe they're not. He's also trying to still maintain his normal life. But it's not like the most innovative story. It's kind of like some other mob stuff we've seen, but it was just so cool to see Adam Sandler in this role. He's so good in it. I liked how they cast people like The Weeknd and Kevin Garnett to make it really feel like this is in the real world, which was
that was cool.
Yeah.
And they're playing themselves. And then, I mean, the Safdie brothers who directed Good Time, which I also watched in quarantine, they directed this. And it's like, they just took such a pretty, simple story and just made it so compelling with the direction, how it's shot, the pacing. It's like a little over 2 hours, but just how it moves, the character interactions, and kind of like the way character dynamics are flipped more than you think they would. Like Adam Sandler's character, for example, he has a wife and a family, but he also has a mistress, I guess you would call her. And I feel like in any other movie, it's like he would end up with the wife and the mistress would just be somebody with him for the money. But they just flip every dynamic in this movie. It's like, the mistress is actually a really nice person. It's like genuinely like loves him, and she works for him. Like she wants to do a great job. She has her problems. Like she's not always like on time for work, but that's kind of like her biggest transgression. Like everything else she does for the business and for him because she loves him. And then the wife is like, why would I take you back? You're cheating on me. Which in any other movie, whenever he has the emotional scene from the trailer, like, come on, give me a second chance. She just laughs in his face. He's like, no. I just liked how they grounded it in the real world. This crazy mob story involving like underground gambling, starring Adam Sandler. It's so cool. I loved it. I thought it was a blast.
Yeah, I think Adam Sandler's great, really great in this movie. And I don't think this movie would work if it wasn't for the writing, because this movie basically hinges on dialogue, or every scene where it's just people talking is really interesting in this film, and you're kind of hooked on every word that the characters are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I came into this movie with really low expectations because I didn't find the trailers that exciting whenever they were marketing this movie, and I was just kind of like, oh wow, Adam Sandler is trying to get away from comedy. But this movie blew me away. I really enjoyed it, and like you said, it's like 2.5 hours, but it goes by quick. It went by really fast when I was watching it.
It had me nervous the entire time.
Oh my
God.
I was on my toes. Like, it makes you feel for people, either people who are actual like gambling addicts or people who are married to gambling addicts. It makes you feel for those people. Like, God dang, that's a hard business to like be in and continue to do. It's crazy.
It's an addiction. It's a real addiction.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people. I think people nowadays like understand alcoholism as an addiction. You know, they understand maybe even sex addicts, like maybe to a lesser extent than like alcoholism and drug addiction and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, gambling is just another addiction, and seeing that in such a real way. And oh my God, this is like, if you have anxiety, you might not want to watch this movie. Like real talk. I mean, it's like we said, it's like 2+ hours, and it's so tense.
Yeah, this movie really stressed me out. I was watching it with my wife, and she was like, "I got to stop watching this. It's stressing me out too much." So she just went upstairs and looked up the ending.
I was just going to say about the ending. If you're someone that like, if that's the kind of thing that it's like makes you want to watch something, I thought the ending of this movie was just amazing. Chef's kiss, if you will.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense for the world. It makes so much sense for these characters. And even though, like, I won't say it, I won't spoil it because again, it's on Netflix. Like, if I just said what the ending was, people would be like, "How is that satisfying?" But somehow
it was,
and it's also so.
It's really satisfying. Yeah, you're right.
Characters involved. It feels satisfying in a weird way for like the heroes, quote unquote, and villains. It's so bizarre. I don't know how they pulled it off. It's so good.
All right. Well, the next film that I think all three of us caught up on was 1917.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'll leave you guys to talk about this one because I saw it in theaters. So I guess this is probably one of the last movies I got to see before quarantine. So I'd already seen it. But yeah, what were your guys' thoughts on this one?
I thought it was great. Might have been a little overhyped for me with, this came out during award season, so it got a lot of buzz then. Obviously, the thing that makes this movie talked about is the whole, like, it's filmed to be one cut for the entire film. And I think that dynamic works really well. I like that it's kind of slower paced, kind of just like World War I was more of like a slower inch by inch war. I also like the World War I setting. So I think it's a great film overall. I think that all the performances are great. That the last like 20 minutes of this film are like just heart racing and pounding, and you're just rooting for all the characters. But yeah, it was a great watch. Definitely great to watch at home for sure while you're in lockdown.
Yeah. Keith, what do you think?
Same as Uncut Gems. I was nervous the entire time. Shit was blowing up all over the place. I mean, I think it portrayed war in World War I in a very real way, with them being in the dishes. And I thought I wish I knew their names. The British actors who played those parts did a really good job. And overall, it was a really good story. Yeah,
I kind of like that when something like emotional happens in this film, because it's all filmed to look like one cut. Like, you're just kind of forced to sit with the characters, where like in other films, like something emotional would happen, somebody would die, and then you get like maybe a minute with them, and then it'd cut to another scene, maybe with like some other characters in it. But in this movie, if something happens and somebody dies, like, you're stuck to just sit with that character and his grief for the rest of the movie. And I think it's a really, really good dynamic for this film.
Yeah, there's a lot of silence in this movie with characters that they sit on and kind of make you reflect like they are. Ultimately, I think looking back on it, I think it's just a movie that everybody should see for the filmmaking of it, for the camera work, for just what Roger Deakins, the director of photography, put into this movie. I mean, the way it's shot, like, it's just baffling, like how they handled it sometimes. And then finding out a lot of the stuff they were using was actually like visual effects that they snuck in to like hide some stuff and then like just make the backgrounds all that more compelling. But yeah, overall, I think, I thought the story was fine. War movies aren't my favorite genre, just because I think for me, it's gotten to a point where they feel so like samey some of the time. There's only so much you can do with war movies, especially ones like this. But I thought they did a really great job exploring World War I, which is, I feel like we don't get a lot of World War I in media. So it was cool to see the slower pace of this one. But yeah, overall for me, I mean, I think the reason I see it's the way it's shot, not much else for me personally.
It did feel like other war movies, but I think the thing that you mentioned earlier, Austin, that the one take camera was really what made this film, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, anybody that's a fan of filmmaking should definitely go see this film if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay, so now the last film we have on our list today is one of my personal favorites of the year, and that's Jojo Rabbit.
Weird movie.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, speaking of war, I actually there you go. Speaking of a war movie, I actually really liked. I mean, this one takes kind of tropes we've seen before, character dynamics we've seen before, and makes it somehow like more emotional. Like it has like the emotional impact of movies like Schindler's List, but then it also is just really funny at times. It's so weird.
Yeah, I found this movie heartwarming. I found parts of it really funny, and I also like the fact that it. I guess you maybe could classify it as a comedy, but they also then don't like shy away from really just how rough it was to live in World War II Germany during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree.
It kind of had that Inglorious Bastards kind of feel to it for
A
me.
little bit, yeah, for sure.
Sometimes, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they have Taika Waititi, who wrote and directed it, also playing Hitler in the movie, and it's like really funny, is just still weird. It's just weird to even think about. But
It could have not hit at all. It could have come off as insensitive. It could have been terrible. I think in anybody else's hands, it probably would have come off that way. But I think because it's Taika Waititi directing this film and then also playing that role, I think that's the main reason it works.
yeah, because they also make it sad, even though like you're laughing at the stuff he's saying. It's also sad because you realize the premise for like the reason that he's in the movie is because this young German kid, worships Hitler. So it's like his imaginary friend, his idol is, Hitler. So this is the way he perceives him. He perceives Hitler to be this really kind of cool and fun person. So it's kind of sad, even though like he's cracking jokes. Like you feel sad watching it too, because you can imagine like a lot of these children, I mean, looked up to this person because that's the way that they were programmed. So it's really sad.
Yeah. And the kids in this film are great. It's usually hard to get good performances from child actors, but I think every member of this cast just does so well in this film.
Yeah, it's great. Cast is great. It's funny when it needs to be. It's really sad and affecting when it needs to be, and just the relationships between characters is just so exciting to watch. And the fact that they make so many of these characters who you would never feel for in other movies, somehow they did. I don't know how they did it, but it seems like a feat. And it's crazy that it was pulled off without feeling, at least for me, not feeling like, at least not offensive in the typical sense. It's not like, I mean, I didn't find the movie offensive in what it was portraying, but maybe some people did. But I thought that they pulled it off in a way that felt heartwarming, which I don't understand how they did with the subject material. So good for them.
Yeah, Keith, you mentioned Inglourious Bastards. For me, this film kind of reminded me of The Kings of Summer.
This reminded me of Kings of Summer? Shit.
Yeah.
With Moises?
Yeah.
Montana.
What part of Kings of Summer did it remind you of?
I guess just like kind of the child dynamic and the like camp dynamic at the beginning. I don't know, because this is kind of a coming of age story, and so is Kings of Summer.
Oh, I feel that it has like I'm sure people could say a bunch of different movies that it reminds them of, and it probably has some piece of that.
It does have that like the imaginary part of it, for sure.
Yeah. So lots of recommendations here and all sorts of different media, but lots of good stuff.
Well, since we're on the subject of movies, I do want to know, how do you think this whole coronavirus pandemic is going to impact theaters going forward?
I can think about right now, me being a big Bond fan, they've moved back the release date of the new Bond movie like 4 times now. So that's been kind of frustrating, but I know why.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to make the most money they can off of it, so they're probably going to wait till the theaters can get full again.
Right, exactly. That's got to be what it is. Yeah, so it's going to affect things for a long time because, people are just now able to start filming some things, but probably not everything. So this is going to push back stuff like for probably a couple of years. We'll see the ramifications still. But in terms of theaters, I think that's the more pressing thing that people are worried about, because how are they going to stay open? Can they stay open? How long is this going to go if there's a second wave that people are talking about with, COVID? Like if we have to go into lockdown again, can the theaters maintain another round of this? And the answer is probably no, but we'll see what happens. There's still some movies that are trying to come out this summer. I know Tenet is still the big one. It got pushed back 2 weeks, so it's still supposed to come out at the end of July. But we'll see. I think we will see regardless. I think we may see options for movies to come out. Even after theaters are open, we might still see video on demand become a big thing like it has now. Like we watched The Way Back. Was that the Ben Affleck basketball coach alcoholism movie? Like that movie had just come out, and so we paid like $20 to watch it. Like a bunch of us did. So it's like, yeah, you're still paying more money, but you're watching movies that may also be in theaters or would have been in theaters, and now you're watching them like 6 months sooner. So it's kind of a trade-off. My guess is that's going to continue in some form. Like maybe we'll see options for movies to be in theaters, but maybe they'll also come out on demand and you just pay a bit more. I'm not sure. I would have to imagine that's going to exist for a while in some form, though.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any way you can go back to having packed theaters again until there is a vaccine. I just don't know
Right.
how. One, I don't know how the movie theaters could do that and then not open themselves up to like liability issues. But then also just like for just the whole point of feeling safe. Like I don't know how you can go to a packed theater and then also feel safe in that environment.
Yeah,
you're pretty compact in a theater.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
They're
Environments
just do limiting seats, I guess. I mean, spacing people like 3 seats or whatever.
Yeah, it's just how they'll police that, because it's like, not that anybody would, maybe not right now, but who knows? I mean, like they could police it that way, but then is there someone that stands in a theater like enforcing that? Because like once they go in, like do they sit in that seat or do they just get closer if they're together? Or who knows? I don't know.
And then I know for like sports events, they're talking about like having temperature checks and all that. So maybe somehow that gets implemented, but I don't know how you do that on a mass level.
Like why they're going to do it and televise it, but there won't be audiences, which is obviously not something you can do with movie theaters, obviously, because the whole purpose is for an audience. Like I can watch a sports match at home, and like the players are the ones, putting their lives on the line in terms of the virus. But going to a theater, it's like my only option is to be like the only person in the row, and maybe I'll feel safe, or I can spend a little bit more money and just watch it at home. And like the trade-off is the quality and the picture won't be as good because it won't be projected on a huge screen with great sound, but maybe at least I'll feel safer. Yeah, the theater industry is going to be a tough one because it's like restaurants, you can go sit outside, but theaters, it's like, how do they change it? How do they enforce it for people to feel safe? And the answer is I have no idea.
I mean, even if the COVID wasn't going on, I think it would still be a question if the theaters are going to stay open, like because of all the streaming services and everything like that. But I feel like the theater experience is still something people like to do. Go and see the big screen, have the warm, buttery popcorn and all that. It's still.
Yeah, I love going to the movies. That's like one of the big things I miss about life prior to this new reality.
Exactly. I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, I think that's just about gonna do it for us today. I do want to know though, is there anything else you guys are planning to watch in this lockdown at the moment? I know for me, I'm planning to watch Bosch. I want to watch Community. I want to watch the Clone Wars on Disney Plus, and my wife's been begging me to watch Avatar, so I'm gonna have to watch that at some point too.
Avatar. The Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender.
Wow.
Let's see. I don't know what I'm gonna watch. I think I've always been kind of wanting to watch or like see if I like the Clone Wars as well, so I might dip into that. As for shows, I'm not sure. Like I said, I literally just finished The Witcher.
And you loved every minute of it.
I loved it. Can't wait for more. I'll do Last of Us 2. That's a game, obviously. But who knows? There's a lot.
I'll continue watching The Office for sure. That's a funny one. I'll continue binging it. I'm going to do more than one season in a few weeks. I'll probably give The Witcher another try instead of watching the first 2 minutes. I want to see what happens after that spider fight.
You want to see what happens after the logo comes on screen.
Maybe give Community a try once I get done with The Office.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess then move on from there.
Yeah, lots of good stuff out there.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening today. Please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. As always, make sure you like and leave us a review. We are still trying to grow this place, and the more reviews and likes we get, the better we can grow on all the podcast apps. The Arnies.media is the website, and @the Arnies is our social. We'll be back next week when we've got nothing better to do. Bye, everyone.